What is up, everyone, and welcome back to the PCC podcast. This is episode 95. That's crazy. But welcome back. We're excited to have you here, and this is going to be a great episode. And it's just a very tactical, useful one that I wanted to keep short and sweet, but make sure to give you some really good takeaways for social events. Maybe it's summer, maybe it's the holidays. I don't know when you're listening to this, but of course, when you're listening to this, it's because you really need to have some good intention planning and setting for whatever you've got coming up. Okay. So we're going to talk about how to handle social events, food events, alcohol related events, and still make progress. Okay. So, we're going to cover all the ins and outs of exactly how to really strategize for this and not ruin your progress when you are vacationing at social events, work dinners, you don't have control of your food. And that way you don't spiral, you don't completely throw everything out the window. And the biggest thing that I want you all to take away from this entire episode is that it's not about being perfect. As simple as that sounds, if we can just wrap our minds around that, it's not about being perfect. You are going to get so much farther because you will then set the baseline at being understanding for the fact that things won't be perfect. So when things don't look perfect, you are able to pivot and adapt instead of spiral. Okay, so that is our baseline. That's where I want us to just like set ground zero. That is a non-negotiable starting place. Now let's talk about how to actually plan for this sort of thing. So number one, let's talk about before the event. No matter what kind of social event, food event, holiday it is, we want to intention set. And I'm going to give you some of the key questions that I ask all of our clients before they go on a vacation, before the holidays, so that you can really anchor your mind in what is important to you. Because if you don't set intentions, then you have no idea what success even looks like, right? And success is going to look different than how it looks on the day to day. Like if you are following a fat loss protocol, if you are working towards a goal, success looks like hitting the targets. When we fail to intention set, what happens is we default to thinking success looks the same way. And that is why when we make one small mistake or things look different, we spiral instead of adapting. So, intention setting. I want you to ask yourself these few questions. Number one, how do I want to feel after this event? Not like, what do I want the outcomes to be? Not what do I want the scale to say? How do I want to feel in my body? So things like fullness, digestion, energy, sluggishness, but also how do I want to feel emotionally about the decisions that I made, right? So think about those things. How do you actually want to feel following this event? And visualize that, picture that, feel that, because that can give you something to actually strive for that doesn't require you to hit a certain exact number of calories. Another question is, what is kind of the nature of this event, right? Is this social event something that's super food oriented that I am really looking forward to the food aspect or the drink aspect of it? If that is the case, then we're going to prioritize around you enjoying those things. If it is not the case, you actually don't care about the food at all. And you just are there for, let's say, networking or for the people or for the event, and the food actually doesn't matter to you, then we're going to plan for that, right? And maybe you don't know. Maybe you're like, I don't know what the food's going to look like. I don't know if I'm going to like it. I don't know if it's going to feel like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever, and it's going to be so worth it to indulge, or if I'm not going to care. Then we can plan for that too. Okay. And then here's a question that's really important, the third one. What would it look like to simultaneously enjoy this event without sacrificing my body or my goals? This is really important that we ask this and based question, right? It's not I can have this or this. It's not I can have this, but I'll sabotage my goals, or I can have my goals, but I will not have fun at this event. This is how we've been trained to think. This is how we've just been brought up with diet culture, in the 90s, 2000s. We have been taught that reaching our goals means that we cannot have fun, we cannot feel good, and those two things are mutually exclusive. This is the first thing that we need to tackle out of the gate, is in our intention setting. How can I have both? How does it look to have both? If we just ask ourselves that question, like hypothetically, how would that be possible? And the options really open up from there when we actually ask ourselves that question. So then you can start to explore, how can you make yourself feel good and reach your goals and enjoy the event? So think and, not but. Now we're going to answer those 3 questions and we're going to actually answer them. We're going to write it down. I want you to do a journaling exercise in your phone on a piece of paper. Yeah, it's going to feel cheesy, but guess what? You've never been able to handle social events in the way that you've wanted before. So what makes you think you can start now just by hearing this and not actually putting into practice? Okay. So let's write it down, as long as you're not driving. If you're driving, save this and come back to it later. Now let's talk about the actual tactical planning portion of it next. Now we're going to think about what we know about the event, the holiday, the social event, the vacation, and within the constraints of those intentions. This is really important. Everything moving forward from here is going to be within the context and the constraints of the intentions. Is asking ourselves, what can I control? How can I kickstart my day with a good tone, right? So whether it's a vacation and it's how do I start every day, or it's most of the days, or it's one holiday and it's like Thanksgiving and it's how do I kickstart the day to feel good going into that meal, whether it's lunchtime or dinner time, right? And so think about, just because you have this event, there are other things in that day that you can control. Control does not mean overcompensate. Control does not mean restrict. Control means do something that makes you feel good and that is aligned with your goals. So that might mean hydrating extra if you plan to drink alcohol. That might mean having a high protein breakfast, knowing that the meal later in the day is going to be very low in protein or high in carbs and fats. It might be have more fiber because we know we're not going to get a lot of that in whatever the meal is. It might mean going on and getting your steps early in the day, or getting a workout in, not to burn calories and not to overcompensate, but to set the tone for the day, right? The same actions can have 2 completely different motivations behind them. One motivation can be very disordered and unhealthy, and one motivation can be healthy and balanced. And it's up to you to set the appropriate intentions to go into it the right way. Okay. So let's plan accordingly. Let's control what we can control. And that doesn't always mean only doing what's convenient, right? It might actually mean, like, if you're traveling, packing some things with you that are going to help you set the tone for the day. Maybe you're on vacation. Maybe you Instacart some things to your hotel or to your Airbnb. If that is going to make it easier for you to overall have a more balanced trip, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Every time I travel, when I go to hotels, I Instacart to the hotel room. If you didn't know, you can do that. You can also Instacart to Airbnbs, of course. And I usually get things like Fairlife protein shakes, some fruit, some Greek yogurt, just things that I can have for like breakfasts or snacks that are typically just high in protein and high in fiber. And that allows me to typically control one meal of the day, stack up protein and fiber early so I don't have to worry about it later, keep my digestion regular, things like that. I'll also typically Instacart like a gallon or 2 of water and like actually just use that each day that I'm on the trip. So if I'm there for 4 days, I'll get 4 gallons of water, not Airbnb, what's it called? Instacart it to my room. And then I'll make it a goal to drink as much of a full gallon of water each of those days, because when you're traveling, you're typically going to be more dehydrated. So those are some examples, right? It's not all super convenient, but it is controllables. And when your health is a priority to you, there are certain things you can do that are fairly simple and can make it easier. Now let's talk about the event itself. Now there's 2 kind of main topics that we're going to cover, which is food and alcohol. And so number 1, when it comes to food, if you are a macro tracker, a tracker of any kind, one way I like to explain it to clients is there are levels to success. Okay. It's not like if I don't hit all of my macros, then it's just like I'm screwed. I personally have thought this way about events and things for a very long period of time, and it's kept me sane, and it actually keeps tracking my food very sustainable for me. Like, I haven't burnt out from tracking my food in a very long time because I have a very flexible mentality with it. So when I have events like these, the tiers of success kind of go as follows. So number one, if I could actually, finagle things to hit my macros, awesome. That is like bonus, A plus gold star, right? But the next tier of success is what I typically try to aim for, unless it's like a total like holiday or special event, is total calorie range and protein. So if you do the math, you could probably try to figure out, how many total calories do my macros add up to, and then plus or minus 100 calories above or below that, or maybe one or 200 calories above or below that. If I'm within that range and I'm roughly around my protein goal, or I get at least 100 grams of protein per day minimum, that's a win. That's a really easy way of looking at it. You can let a lot of things go, but still be successful. The next tier of success would just be total calories. Let's say you don't get up to 100 grams of protein or your protein goal. Then if you just stay within that same calorie range, like you are literally preventing yourself from overdoing it by staying within that range. How is that not a win? Like, you're still moderating. It's freaking awesome. And then let's say you can't stay in the calorie range or you can't track for whatever reason. Sticking to mindful eating cues like chewing 15 to 20 times per bite, putting your fork down between bites, being present in the conversation so that you are actually slowing down when you're eating your favorite foods first instead of last. So that way you're not stuffing yourself with the stuff that tastes the best because, oops, it tastes so good and I want more even though I'm full, right? Those are some ways that we can define success in tiers, right? And then eating things that just feel worth it. Like, I've always called this the hell yes food mentality, meaning if it doesn't make you say hell yes, then it's a hell no, right? Don't just eat things because they're there. If you have goals, just be intentional, right? And you can enjoy everything that's there. But if it's not actually worth it, if it's not actually really good, then leave it. Leave food on your plate. Practice being okay with defying that food scarcity, finish your plate mentality, because typically, if you're listening to this podcast, it kind of shows me you were probably raised that way, but it's not really something that is required for you or a threat to your actual financial health if you were to leave food on the plate right now, right? Especially not at an event. So eat things that actually feel worth it and have the hell yes foods. If you're going to go back for seconds, only go back for the things that were an absolute hell yes. Because when you really start asking yourself, am I eating this because it's the most delicious thing ever? Or am I eating it just because it's there? The number of times that you're answering the latter is very surprisingly more often than you realize. And then I'll also just talk about one more thing on the food side, is something called the 4-bite rule. And this is actually a studied concept where they tested the dopaminergic response in the brain. Super cool how they were able to really see how does the brain kind of like spike up and get excited with every bite of a hyper palatable or delicious food. And the really interesting thing is that it makes a lot of sense why, if you have a chip bag open in front of you, or you're standing at the kitchen island and you're just picking at stuff and you can't seem to stop yourself, it's for this reason. It's because when we first taste of food, it is going to elicit the largest dopamine spike in the brain. It's going to elicit the most reaction from our taste bud receptors and how we actually perceive the taste of that food, because it's new, it's novel, it's going to taste the most new. And then the second bite is going to be really exciting as well, but slightly less. And then the bite after that is going to be slightly less. The bite after that, slightly less. And the really interesting thing is that after the 4th bite, there is a huge drop off in diminishing returns, meaning that every bite after the 3rd or 4th is never going to actually elicit the same response or have the same level of flavor or texture or whatever it was that was so good as the first. So if you know that, it's really cool how this can actually show up in your behavior, because you can remind yourself, if you're continuing to grab, I'm chasing the texture, the flavor, whatever it was from the first bite that I will not get again. If you can catch yourself in the moment and remind yourself that, then you're just going to stop because you know that it's not coming. And that doesn't mean that the other bites aren't good, but they're not going to be that bite. And that's typically what we're doing when we keep just one more, just one more, just one more, and one becomes 10, right? So remember that it's a neuroscience tested concept, the 4-bite rule, and it's so useful in the moment. Okay, now let's talk alcohol strategies. Okay, so this is pretty simple overall tactically, but one question that I do like to ask anyone who's kind of asking themselves, like, do I want to drink at this event? Do I not? And you're kind of just thinking about like the weekend ahead, the event ahead, the vacation ahead, whatever it is. The question I want you to ask yourself instead is, how do I want my relationship with alcohol to look overall instead of just next time? And I want you to let that be your guiding star, your guiding principle instead, working toward that. Because if your actual goal with alcohol is to have a relationship with it where you have like one glass and you're done, but you're setting goals that are just kind of like each single event, I want to have 2 drinks here, 3 drinks here, like you're not really getting closer to that end goal. So how can you go from whatever you're currently doing to one step closer to whatever the end goal or the North Star is? Because your overall goal with what you want to have your relationship with alcohol look like is most likely going to be a bigger picture, more deeply rooted reason. Like with alcohol, we know it's a toxin. We know that it is addictive. We know all these things about it, that it's not great, whatever. But most of us, and I will say this lightly because I can't speak for everyone, but I think for the amount of people that I've talked to who drink on a regular basis or semi-regular basis, is most of us just want to feel like we're in the driver's seat. Most of us just want to feel like we're the ones in control, right? That we can just have one and be done. And maybe we struggle with that because of peer pressure. Maybe we struggle with that because we've always been that person who just kind of splits a bottle of wine with their partner, and that's just the habit that you're in. Maybe it's a struggle because of stress. But whatever the reason is, like, we have to really get rooted in what do we want that relationship to look like and why, and then make decisions from there. Now, deep stuff aside, I could go on that rabbit hole all day. If you want that to be a full episode, let me know and I can definitely do it. But as for actual strategies, so if you are in an event where you know you're going to be drinking multiple drinks, my recommendation for you would be, number 1, don't serve yourself the first drink. This is going to sound really weird, but if you don't serve yourself the first drink, what's going to happen? Someone probably will notice that you either have a water in your hand or nothing. And then that someone is going to offer you a drink. This same someone probably would have been the same person who would have seen an empty-ish drink in your hand and said, can I get you another? And so what's happening here? They are now giving you your first instead of your second. So now we are already just one less than we normally would have for the whole night. And maybe no one notices. And maybe you go the whole night not drinking just because no one asked. Even better. And that could just show you that, like, if you are someone who struggles with the peer pressure aspect or feeling weird about it, feeling left out, if literally no one notices, like, what's that going to do to your psyche? You're going to be like, oh my God, it literally doesn't matter. Like, no one commented on it. Right. Another strategy is maybe you are in the midst of having multiple. Try spacing every single drink with water or sparkling water in between. So that way you are pacing yourself and hydrating at the same rate that you are dehydrating. And another recommendation would be to take my free alcohol guide where you can have lower calorie drinks and swaps and basically just know what to order for the least amount of calories possible. That would be another one that you can just get by messaging me on Instagram, the word alcohol, or just be like, hey, I want the alcohol guide. And I will go ahead and send that to you, no strings attached. And then lastly, I mean, you can always go in with an intention, a drink cap per se. But, you have to kind of know yourself if that is something that helps. I think when it does help, it's because it's an implementation intention. It's making the decision ahead of time. It's taking the decision fatigue out of it, because typically if we are drinking, we're either decision impaired or we're just tired from a long day. We don't want to make another decision. So we just say, screw it. So if we make the decision in advance, sometimes that can help with taking away having to make that choice on the spot and make it easier for you to follow through. So those are some tactical and, of course, mindset related tips for how to handle social events and still make progress. I would love to know some feedback if you listened to this episode, which one resonated with you the most. Send me a message on Instagram, send me an email, let me know. I'll keep all of my information in the show notes. You can just message me again, the word alcohol or alcohol guide on Instagram, and I can send that over to you if you'd like it. And happy holidays. Have a great event, whatever it is that you're preparing for that made you listen to this. Have a great time. Remember that one day does not ruin all of your progress. And I'll see you back here for the next episode.